What is up, family? We have another Patreon request. We got What Actually Happened to Ribbit. What Actually Happened to Ribbit, the Amazing Digital Circus, episode 7. This episode was wild. And you know what? I'm kind of happy that this guy did a few of these because there were definitely some areas of episodes that I was a little foggy. I was a little foggy understanding what exactly was going on. So this is perfect because what actually happened to Ribbit, I don't think I even know. So you know what? Perfect.
Starting with episode 5, the topic of Ribbit has been one of the most talked about among Digital Circus fans, and almost immediately it became obvious to us that this character is insanely important to Jax.
Yeah.
Actual friends? Not anymore.
In today's video, we're finally going to figure out what actually happened to Ribbit because episode 7 revealed several pretty interesting details, and we'll also find out why this loss turned out to be so painful for our rabbit, because things here aren't as obvious as they might seem at first glance. But to dive as deep as possible, we need to quickly go over the timeline. Like I already said, the first mention of Ribbit was in episode 5, and that's when it became clear this was a hard-no topic for Jax. Then we were briefly shown the door to Ribbit's room, and once again it was confirmed that this girl meant a lot to Jax. Also, in episode 5, we were clearly shown that Jax will always avoid this topic.
What was that about?
It's nothing. Who cares?
So, you wanna talk about that?
I'm in a maid outfit. What do you think?
In episode 6, the topic of Jax's close friends was explored a bit more. What matters here is remembering Jax's reaction to his friend's doors, while the crossed-out image of Kaufmo triggered something like anger in Jax. The image of Ribbit, on the other hand, put Jax into a kind of trance. And now we finally get to episode 7, where the topic of Ribbit was explored even further. First, we were shown Jax's vision. And closer to the end of the episode, we saw this.
Hey, you alright?
I'm great.
At this point in the video, we've gone over everything Glitch and
That didn't
Goosework
really
showed
help,
us,
though.
which means we can move on to the next part of the video. In episode 7, we clearly saw some kind of winter location, and
Well,
since
that-
this sphere was located in the zone with all of Kane's adventures, and it was exactly the one Jax stared at so deeply, it's safe to assume that this so-called snowy adventure
That's
is
where
directly
Ribbit is.
connected to the final moments of Ribbit's life in the Digital Circus. This is also hinted at by the fact that the photo taken during this adventure is a priority one for Jax. So this lets us understand that the snowy adventure became a turning point for Ribbit, and everyone also remembers that during this scene, we heard some kind of speech. It's actually pretty hard to make out what exactly is being said there, but the most believable version sounds like this.
Hey,
Most likely some kind of conflict happened between Jax and Ribbit, which led to them falling out. It's obvious that Ribbit is now somewhere in the cellar together with the rest of the abstracted, and the most interesting part is that we actually know how this happened. I think it's clear to everyone that Jax isn't going to turn into an abstracted monster until the very last moment of the amazing Digital Circus. And in that context, it's interesting to talk about the scene the show creators showed us during the moment in Jax's room. Of course, we saw this to understand just how bad Jax's mental state really was, but what if the vision shown right before that wasn't only meant to show Jax's main issue, so to speak, but also to hint at how Ribbit's abstraction actually happened? This isn't something insanely important for us, just some interesting food for thought. We understand that the final straw for Ribbit was the conflict with Jax during the snowy adventure, and in my opinion now is the best possible moment to discuss what could have led to this, and why exactly this became the final note of Ribbit's life in the Digital Circus. But before that, let's remember what the voice actors revealed.
Using knowledge I have of Ribbit that you guys don't have yet, Ribbit's smash.
This is where things get way more interesting, because the person who already knows Ribbit's story literally straight up describes this character as someone we're gonna like. In that case, Ribbit comes off as a pretty positive kind and interesting character. The problem is that Jax at that time was most likely the same, which makes it pretty hard to figure out who could have started the conflict that led to such horrifying consequences. I feel like the hints toward the truth were in episode 6 in the storyline between Jax and Pomni. It's officially confirmed that Ribbit was a girl, and we also have several references to Ribbit in the concepts and scenes involving Pomni. All of this is basically screaming that Pomni is a sort of reincarnation of Ribbit, which means that when talking about Ribbit's past and her interactions with Jax, we can safely rely on what was shown in episode 6. If this is actually true, then even now we can already understand what kind of character Ribbit was. Cheerful, kind, caring, with her own opinions and her own clear views on life. Even though Jax back then was a more positive character than he is now, as far as I know, he appeared in the digital circus earlier than Ribbit, and that in turn means he had seen at least one abstraction before Ribbit ever entered the digital circus. A new character can only appear after someone from the current cast turns into an abstracted monster. This was clearly shown to us with Pomni and Kaufmo, which is actually pretty symbolic since Kaufmo, just like Ribbit, was a close friend of Jax. Knowing that Jax is actually a very sensitive character who's haunted by one real-life event, we can understand that the very first abstraction he witnessed is what ended up shaping his entire worldview.
One day you're somebody in the real world doing important things, and then the next you're just a weird little cartoon jester.
We're still people, though, right?
I thought we were at first, but as time goes on, we just end up falling into our archetypes, become part of the machine.
What's your archetype, then?
Listen, I add a key dynamic.
The funny one?
Yeah. Ragatha's the cheerful one, Gangle's the sad one, Kinger's the crazy one, Zubal's the grumpy one, and you are the one who hasn't figured that out yet.
Kaufmo and Ribbit weren't just best friends to Jax, they were literally his only friends. I feel like Ribbit held a more important place in Jax's life than Kaufmo, which is why he tried his hardest to protect her. He kept telling her over and over that she needed to find a certain archetype and stick to it no matter what, and that only then everything would be fine. But if we go back to the parallel between Pomni and Ribbit, we immediately realize that Ribbit couldn't accept this so easily, and most likely had an inner conflict because of it. On one hand, she listened to her best friend and followed his advice, but on the other hand, it completely went against her inner desires. Maybe Jax was turning her against the others, making her suppress her true personality. We don't know for sure how long this went on, but in my opinion, even a couple of weeks could be enough to drive someone insane when living like that. Little by little, Ribbit was losing interest in life, and the climax of all this was the snowy adventure. I'm more than sure that you can't really single out just one person to blame in this conflict, since you can understand both sides. Jax sees Ribbit slowly stop being the person he wants her to be, while Ribbit in return notices that Jax is no longer the kind friend she used to have fun spending time with. Over time, Jax became more and more rough toward Ribbit exactly because she didn't want to fully follow Jax's so-called advice. This turns into a vicious cycle that would inevitably lead to a fight between them, and if you look at it more closely, then both are at fault, but of course, on a purely human level, the blame falls on Jax. After this conflict, Ribbit fully realized that she wouldn't be able to live under the conditions of the digital circus. Her mental state was almost completely destroyed by that inner conflict we talked about earlier. If even someone as close as Jax couldn't be her support, was basically only pushing her closer to the end, then in Ribbit's mind there was a firm belief that everyone else would be even worse. Completely losing control over herself, Ribbit simply couldn't resist the inevitable anymore, and as a result, ended up in the place where in the future another one of Jax's best friends will end up as well. Agree that all of this sounds really logical, and I'm 99% sure that this is exactly how it actually happened.
Damn.
Of course, if you've got your own theories, I'd be glad to see you in the comments. Wrapping it all up, we can say that it was Jax who ended up pushing his best friend into that state.
That I could believe.
Wasn't done with bad intentions, and definitely not on purpose, but by trying to protect Ribbit, Jax only made everything worse. That's basically why he reacts so negatively to Pomni's hugs, when she was already sure that they were best friends now. Jax is simply scared of hurting anyone else. All of this also explains why Jax reacts so strongly to any mention or memory of Ribbit. He's genuinely ashamed and hurt by how everything ended. Jax never got the chance to apologize to Ribbit for that conflict during the snowy adventure, which made his last memory of Ribbit extremely traumatic. Once again, don't forget about the comments, and see you very soon in the new videos.
Well, there you go. There you go. That helped me a little bit. I don't think I agree with Pomni being a reincarnate. Like, she basically is Ribbit. Like the return of Ribbit through Pomni, a reincarnation. I don't understand. I mean, I thought she was just a girl in her 20s as a human, a girl in her 20s, mid-20s, something like that, and she's an accountant. That's what she did. And so Ribbit was an accountant? I mean, Ribbit can't be, I don't know. I don't think Ribbit is Pomni, no. Yes, perhaps the same personality is there, and that's why listen, out of all the characters, he's definitely the closest with Pomni, in my opinion. he gives her the most slack, you know? Even if she does really stupid shit. Jax won't tear her up like he would any other character in the circus. But yeah, I didn't really I can't believe my man figured all that out of those very little amount of hints and clues about Ribbit. Jeez. People got a lot of time to really investigate these things, but that's beautiful because then we get to hear it, listen to it, and understand the story better. So when episode 9 comes out, or 8, or wherever we left off, we'll know the story better. That's why these little videos here are great. These little recaps, but they're recaps with very important information. Anyway, there you have it, folks. We will move on to the next one now. Love this series. Cannot wait for more to come. Season 2, whatever. They never knew. They never had a clue it was gonna blow up the way it did. They did such a good job on this. Anyway, we just wait now until the next. Take care. Peace out. Have a good night.